Merriam-Webster defines oppression as unjust or cruel exercise of authority or power. The term oppressed comes up all too often in discussions regarding everything from pressing geopolitical issues to passing pseudo-intellectual trends. As I've said before, claiming victimhood has become a sport, and as you might imagine, this has led to a drastic rise in the popularity of the term oppressed. In 2019, everyone and their dog's grandmother are oppressed, or at least there are influential people in traditional media vouching for the alleged oppression of everyone and their dog's grandmother. But how do we tell the difference? How do we distinguish between people who are truly being persecuted by unjust institutions or bigoted hate groups, and people who are feigning oppression so that they may climb the proverbial victimhood ladder? Well, I'm sure there is a way to differentiate between the actual victims and the posers, but I'm not here to do that. I'm here to tell you that the difference doesn't matter. Whether your government has stripped you of your human rights and relieved you of all agency, or a Christian bakery wouldn't bake a cake for your gay wedding. Whether a mob of pitchfork-toting bigots are trying to keep their statues up, or your ancestors were literally enslaved. Whether an archaic religion mandates that your genitalia be mutilated, or someone called you a bad word on social media, does not matter. You are not oppressed. Why, you might ask? Because for every oppressed class of people that fits one of the descriptions I just listed, you could go somewhere in the world and find that same class of people prospering. A certain race is suppressed and enslaved over there, well, that same race is privileged and well off over here. A particular gender is subservient to another in that part of the world, well, all genders have equal rights in this part of the world. There is just too much deviation for a consistent standard to be set when quantifying the word oppressed. But I'll tell you what, true oppression does exist, and it exists everywhere. For there is one class of people so ubiquitous and victimized that they cannot live anywhere in this world in peace. They are everywhere. You see them every day. You probably associate with them quite often, but deep down you harbor a prejudice for them the likes of which no other group in human history has experienced. Ugly people. I don't know of a culture in existence that doesn't have some degree of animosity for the more unsightly among them. Maybe you'd argue that the severity of being literally abused by your government or threatened by hate groups outweighs the burden of ugliness, but look at it this way. If your government is oppressing you, you can just move. If your religion aims to physically torture you, you can just apostatize. If you were born ugly, you're stuck that way. Sorry, that's just the hand you've been dealt. Of course, there's always plastic surgery, to which I'd say, yeah, sure, add fuel to the fire that is your inherently deformed face. Everybody knows you're ugly. It's not like their mental image of you is going to change at the mention of appearance-altering surgery. Hey, Brad, did you hear that Doug's getting plastic surgery? But Joe, why would he do that? We've all seen Doug's face. It's not like he can redeem that big of a mess. I know, right? It's like making The Force Awakens and justifying all its flaws by saying that The Last Jedi fixes them. Sorry, Joe. I don't think enough of the audience will get that one, and even fewer will actually agree with the sentiment. What audience? You see, ugly people are the only truly oppressed class of people because no matter where you go in the world, you can find them and try to hide your subsequent disgust as best as possible. Which raises another important factor in this argument. Ugly people can tell that you don't like looking at them. Everywhere they go, people avoid eye contact, keep them at arm's length, and generally try to neglect them. You aren't oppressed until you can't step outside your house without fearing for other people's days getting ruined just by having glimpsed your displeasing demeanor. And don't even try to begin to lecture me on how ugly people can still be charming and charismatic and they can still work hard and achieve success. I know that. They're still ugly. You can be the most accomplished bookworm in your high school, but when it comes time for Steve McChattington to ask for a date to the prom, he'll take one look at you and move right along. Similarly, how you could work your ass off for 20 years climbing up the societal food chain, promotion after promotion until you end up CEO of a company. But when it comes time to settle down and find a mate, you'd end up disappointed because ultimately no woman can stand this side of you. The only way you're getting laid at that point is if your secretary wants a raise, but that isn't true love. Seriously, go anywhere in the world and you'll find the hierarchy always goes something like this. At the top, you've got your alpha males, your Jordan Belfords and Tim Kennedys. The women up there look like anything between Kate Upton and Lauren Southern. They're gorgeous, but not forever, so they don't stay at the top as long as the boys do, but whatever. As you move lower down the list, you got your Jack Burtons and Nathan Drakes. Not as enterprising as alphas, but they're adventurous and have hearts of gold, so you better hang on to them. Moving further down, you've got your average tier, featuring such forgettable faces as Jennifer Lawrence, Olivia Munn, Natalie Portman, and Haley Steinfeld. Mostly women in this category are weird. Then right at the bottom of the food chain, you got your Michael Moores, your Rosie O'Donnells, incels, feminists, tax collectors, and Reddit fact-checkers. Then, under the garbage tier, we have the slot in which all ugly people fall. They are, for all intents and purposes, second-class citizens. They fall into the ethereal underground category that society's food chain won't acknowledge because it's just too damned hard to pay attention to these people for extended periods of time. But Lumo, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. There are no objective standards we can use to judge the value of an individual's appearance. Nonsense. Do you think Victoria's Secret models got where they are because some company exec prioritizes his own standards of beauty over mass appeal? This extends to men too. Look at Hollywood studs like Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron. Great faces, great bodies, their looks sell. As much as it pains me, I gotta commend Instagram thoughts as well, because even they work towards a standard of beauty we can all agree is admirable, even if they are banking on the merits of their ass over their face. And what are the trends we see here when it comes to defining objective standards of beauty? Symmetry, structure, and health. These three factors are universally considered to be the most important in quantifying beauty. Compare an ugly guy to a hot guy. What are the differences that stand out most? The structure of their faces and bodies, such as muscle tone and shape and the symmetry therein. And overall, you judge whether or not they look healthy. Healthy, of course, meaning that their skin isn't too pale, they're getting their vitamin D. Muscles are proportionate, no skin rashes or pimples, and whether or not they have a reasonable body mass. Oh no! He said it. Not only is Lumo victimizing ugly people, but he's taken down the fatties with them. First of all, I'm not victimizing anyone with this video. I'm just pointing out and explaining how all of you contribute to the oppression of our repugnant brethren. It's society's fault, don't you see? But maybe you'd protest in defense of body positivity, claiming that fat people are just as attractive as non-gargantuan individuals. No, they're not. We've already established that one of the key criterions in quantifying beauty is health. If you've got enough grease covering your heart to fry an egg, you aren't healthy. And by extension of being obese, you're also failing to have an appealing structure about you, regardless of gender. Even if you tick the symmetry box, it won't save you. A symmetrical trash fire is still a trash fire. But just because obesity isn't beautiful now, doesn't mean it won't be in the future. Objective standards are not absolute and are dependent on ever-adapting premises. Over time, standards change. We're seeing it happen right now. The body positivity movement is growing in popularity, meaning that before long, health may no longer be a factor in deciding beauty, and that's fine. Because you don't need to be fat in order to be ugly. Of course, it doesn't help your case if you are both physically unattractive and unhealthy, but these things can exist separately. You can have a nice body and a regrettable face, just as you can have a nice face and a horribly distorted body. At this point, you might still be unclear on how exactly ugly people are actually oppressed. It's not like any laws have ever been created to persecute them in particular. And you're right. In this age of technological enlightenment and pretentious platitudes, humanity is beyond regulating people based on their appearance. In first world countries at least, people can make as many unnecessary modifications to their body as they please without worrying about institutional oppression. People can become morbidly obese, or get surgical downgrades, or just lose the genetic lottery, and not fear for the intervention of the law in their starry existences. So then, what exactly is it that keeps ugly people in the dirt? As I've said before, it's the fault of society. Not institutional regulation, but societal stigma. En masse, we just don't view our ill-flavored counterparts the same way we view attractive or even normal-looking people. There's a fine line between having a negligible look to you and having an outright offensive appearance. And you know who I'm talking about. Don't act like you're so far above acknowledging that there's a difference between these two pictures. You're not. Maybe you don't call out every single unsightly individual you see on the street, and if so, good on you. There's no reason to be so rude. But don't act like you aren't aware of the difference between regular and revolting. Because that right there, the fact that you can distinguish between obviously opposed standards of appearance, is the problem. You are contributing to the stigma. Again, it doesn't matter if you keep it to yourself how disgusted you are by the guy with the triple chin and hunchback over there, because they know. They know they're ugly because nobody wants to look at them, and anytime anybody accidentally locks eyes with them, they immediately seem appalled. It's people like you who make them afraid to leave their caves at all. The worst part is that you do it all subconsciously. You don't actively think about hating ugly people. Your prejudice just manifests itself in your mannerisms and behavior. A while ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, one of the sweetest, kindest girls I've ever met, and I asked her, if a random guy approaches you, where do you draw the line between flirting and sexual harassment? She recoiled in discomfort and revealed to me that it depends on whether the guy is handsome or not. If you are watching this video right now, you know who you are. Shame on you. We really do live in a society in which you cannot regulate our reactions to displeasing faces because that would be a thought crime, and we are at least above that. The problem is that our prejudice rests in the public consciousness, the intangible, invisible collection of ideas to which we all, at least in part, subscribe. It is ingrained in the human psyche to hate ugly people, meaning that truly is the only form of discrimination that brings us together as a species, regardless of geographical location or culture. Who would have thought that in 2019 the one thing that could unite the human race would be its shared hatred of its most repulsive members? Likewise, who could have predicted that World War III would be fought between normal people and the undesirables? I mean, war hasn't broken out yet, but it's really just a matter of time before ugly people wake up to the resent we all harbor for them. Until then, I love discussion and debate, so let me know if you have any criticism of my expose of our collective stigma against ugly people, and if you are yourself ugly, drop a like on this video. I had no problem representing you on this issue, and who knows what could happen in the future. Maybe when the revolting revolt you could take it easy on me or something. But anyways guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.